Welcome to ClickFunnels Radio, the podcast that brings you the latest strategies, insights, and success stories from online marketers just like you who utilize funnels to grow their business. Our mission is simple: to help you unleash the true potential of your online business by harnessing the power of funnels. Join us every week as we bring you exclusive interviews and thought-provoking discussions that will revolutionize the way you approach online marketing. Here are your hosts, Laura Demetrius and Chris Cameron.
All right, welcome back to ClickFunnels Radio. I'm Chris Cameron, joined by Laura Demetrius, and today we have a special guest. This has been so fun for me because I met Tim, I want to say this is November of 2019 in Phoenix, Arizona at Jeff Walker's LaunchCon. And I had just done a presentation, a perfect webinar presentation at a breakfast there for Russell. And we had a ton of fun. And I remember first time meeting Tim. Tim came to me and he said, Chris, you got to be honest with me. That sounds great and it sounds incredible from stage, but will this really work? And this is so fun for me because if I had a time machine, I wish I could have given Tim this glimpse of here we sit on ClickFunnels Radio and all the things that Tim has accomplished. This is phenomenal. So welcome, Tim. We're excited to have you. I'd love to hear your version of that story and kind of where you've gone from there, because we have so many different connections. You know, I've stayed in touch throughout, but love to kind of hear how this journey started and what brought you to LaunchCon and what you've done since.
Yeah, it's been such an awesome journey to be part of the ClickFunnels family for this. And when I say family, you know, I don't say that word lightly. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but it's really how I feel when I think about ClickFunnels and the platform and the software and the training I've received and the other funnel hackers who are out there. And it has literally changed my life and changed the trajectory of my family for generations to come. So the story really just starts with a hobby that I had. I've always had this hobby of taking outdoor photos, taking landscape photos, and I never had any real aspirations to make money with it. And I never even really thought that I was that good at it. But I went on this trip, a photo trip with my wife, and we went down to the south of Arizona and California, and we wanted to go to a bunch of cool places and take pictures. And it was at a time in my life when I was looking for what the next thing was going to be in my life, like the next season of life. I knew I needed to do something. And at the start of the trip, it was going to be a month long. I said to Leah, my wife, by the end of this trip, I want to know what the next thing is for me. I need something new to go to. And so on the last day of the trip, we were in Hollywood, California, and we were going to start driving back home at the end of that day. And there was an influencer there, and he was in the landscape photography niche. And I knew that he lived in LA. And so I sent him an email saying, hey, I know that you don't know who I am, and I'm one of your followers. His name is Serge Remily. He's a well-known landscape photographer. And I said, is there any chance that we could meet for coffee or something? My wife and I are going to hike up to the Hollywood sign and photograph it tomorrow. And he said, as a matter of fact, Tim, I'll meet you there. I need some new content. So let's hike up to the Hollywood sign together. So we started hiking up to the Hollywood sign the next day. I'm meeting this influencer. And he said, Tim, I've taken a look at some of your landscape photos on your website. You take awesome photos. You need to do what I do. You need to be making courses, and you need to create for yourself an expert business. There's a book you need to read. It's called Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Read that book. It'll change your life. And it was just like the light turned on for me. It was like what we had been praying about at the start of the trip. Now here's this influencer giving me the permission to actually teach others. I ordered the book on Amazon. It was waiting for me when I got home. I devoured it. And soon after that, I heard about a conference called LaunchCon in Phoenix. And it's Jeff Walker's conference. I went to LaunchCon, and this is where you, Chris, were speaking. And you and someone else had a ClickFunnels booth at the conference. And there was a banner there with the ClickFunnels logo. It
was Ben Harris and Robbie Summers were there with me.
Yeah. And I saw that, the logo and the banner and you guys there. And it was just like, oh my goodness, this is my family. this is what ClickFunnels is all about, that I've been reading in this Expert Secrets book. Like, and then you were on the stage and you gave this amazing presentation where you just hit the ball out of the park and showed everybody that ClickFunnels is the only solution if you want to be selling online, and funnels are the only way to go. And yeah, you and I made a really great connection there. And that was really the beginning of when my life truly started to change.
Isn't that wild? And I'll put in one thing. For those of you who have followed Russell for a long time, perfect webinar works. All I did was we talked about the perfect webinar, and we went through and had an offer, and we talked. And I remember you and Leah were like, boy, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm willing to jump in, but I've got to know if this works. And what's fun about this conversation is, tell me how many 2 Comma Clubs later. Now, what are we, 3.5, 4 years later? And how many 2 Comma Clubs?
Yeah, so I have 4 2 Comma Club awards, and in another 6 weeks, I estimate, I'm going to qualify for the 2 Comma Club X award, and I'm so excited about that.
Wow.
It's been life-changing. It really has.
I think the next time we connected was at probably, maybe it was 2021. We did it quite a bit later in Orlando. We pushed that, and we connected, I think, for one of the awards. When you and we were talking, but after that, I think it was a Voxer or a message on Facebook. And what happened after that conference? I think this may have been like one of your first dramatic demonstrations. Russell talks a lot about the linchpin, and you've become kind of a master of this. And I want to hear about these dramatic demonstrations. And this first one was accidental. Tell us about that.
It was. So Leah, my wife, and I were at Funnel Hacking Live in 2021 in Orlando, Florida. And because we live in Vancouver, Canada, our flights are international flights. And remember, 2021 was when COVID was pretty active. And so as it turned out, when I was about to fly home, we had to take a mandatory COVID test. And for me, it came back positive. And so that meant I couldn't get on the plane because it was an international flight, and we're stuck in Orlando. And it was like, oh my goodness, like, what are we going to do? Do I have to wait 2 weeks before we can go home? So I said, like, enough of this. We're going to rent an RV, and we're going to drive to the absolute opposite corner of the continent in this rented RV. So we started to drive. We actually rented the RV in Miami, and we started to drive through Georgia and Tennessee and Alabama. And as I was driving through Georgia, I started to think, wow, this is like the greatest opportunity I've ever had in my life to see all of these places where normally I would never actually book a trip to specifically go to these places. So we started stopping off at cool places along the way, like Elvis Presley's house in Alabama, and so many. I won't list them now, but as we were stopping at all these places, it was like, hey, we need to film content. We need content. This is the best opportunity. And so we kept filming content as we drove diagonally across the entire continent. And by the time we got home, we had enough for a masterclass and a new principle in landscape photography. And it was this principle about, what if you don't have any time to plan a trip? What if you just find yourself in a new place? What system can you use so that you can just like literally step out of your rented car and go click and take an absolutely awesome landscape photo? So we hosted a live webinar as soon as we got home based on this trip. Like, we made the trip the thing. I called it the greatest road trip of my life. And so that created like a dramatic demonstration, because the people in my landscape photography community, they wanted to hear about the greatest road trip of my life that I just came back from just days ago. And so we created a brand new masterclass based on the road trip, and then had this super dramatic demonstration where I hooked everyone into it, because I wanted to show everyone what my absolute favorite places were across America. And so I created that curiosity. Everyone wanted to know, like, what are Tim's favorite places across America? And so it was like it was our best webinar that we had ever had at the end of that. And that is what planted the seed for an amazing thing that happened the following year, which is kind of connected to Starlink.
And I want to go into that. But before, here's what's fascinating to me. is you have a very unfortunate circumstance. And this is what successful people do. If we go talk about funnel hackers and Laura, and we go and we say, how many of these people can turn, you've done a lot of spotlights, Laura, like how many people have had terrible circumstances that they turned into an opportunity? And that's exactly what Tim did here.
So many of them, I would say, have had something that people would consider to be, if you talk about the gap in the gain or something that is a negative experience. And instead of looking at it as, woe is me, they take that experience and they turn it into a story. And that story turns into a business model. And that business model is wildly successful because they were so raw in what they shared. And I love that kind of the story of your business is like you did the original dramatic demonstration maybe before realizing what it was. And people were in tune and interested in that. And you turned having COVID into a business adventure that turned into such an engaging experience for people who were interested in what you were doing. And I think that that's such a beautiful story of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And really, I've seen this in so many other businesses. So in my little story there, I'm so glad that I got COVID after that conference because it opened the door.
Sounds weird to say, right?
Opportunity. Yeah. And you look at so many other businesses where the entrepreneur's message comes from a place of pain and a negative experience, but they use that negative experience to develop something new and overcome. And then that inspires everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about being an entrepreneur. I really believe that being an entrepreneur is it's the best career that you can have because you solve problems, you help people, you come up with solutions, you create new things that didn't exist before, and you make the world a better place.
Yeah, you had mentioned that that this led into a crazy dramatic demonstration, like involving Starlink, which I was fascinated. I think you sent me the link, and I was able to get onto this. But who would have thought from a road trip you could create a successful webinar? People don't think that. Like you're out taking pictures, trying to show other people how to do this, but you took it a step further. Tell us about that.
Okay, so it was February 2022, and I started work one day, and I saw that there was an article that said Elon Musk has just activated the roaming feature for Starlink. Now, Starlink is a very small satellite dish. At that time, you could only order Starlink and have it permanently mounted at your home, at your residence, and you could never move the dish. And if you did move the dish, it just wouldn't work because it was geofenced. But at the start of the Ukraine war, Elon Musk sent out a tweet that said he has activated the roaming feature, which means that you can start to move the dish. And Leah and I had a trip down to the Grand Canyon already kind of on our calendar that we wanted to go recreate our origin story trip. And I thought to myself, oh man, like I could bring a Starlink dish with me. And we travel in our truck and camper, and we love going to really remote and hard to get to destinations, 4-wheel drive kind of places. I thought, oh, this is so cool. I could have internet when we're out in the middle of nowhere in a place with no cell phone data, which is most of the Grand Canyon. And then the next thought was, well, wouldn't it be so cool if I could do like a Facebook Live from the Grand Canyon? And then the next thought was, well, if I'm going to go through all the trouble and expense of doing a Facebook Live, I need to sell something. Yeah, I'll sell something in a Facebook Live. And then it was like, wait a minute, I need to be doing a webinar from the Grand Canyon.
And this is not the visitor center of the Grand Canyon, Tim.
No, definitely not. This is not Grand Canyon Village. This is on the north side of the Grand Canyon. There's this place. It's called the Toro Weep Overlook. It's near St. George, Utah, kind of. It's about 3 hours away from St. George. And it takes 3 hours of off-road driving to get to the Grand Canyon. It's so remote. It's rough. It's just totally my kind of place. I love going there. So this idea came about that we could host a live webinar from the Grand Canyon. And then we started to think, and I started batting the whole thing around with the guys on my team. And we thought about, is it good enough to say the live webinar is at the Grand Canyon, or can we add another spicy word into that? Like, you know how restaurant menus will often describe the items on their menu and like what would you rather have? Would you like to have a glass of water or a glass of fresh cold water? Well, if the glass of water was free and the glass of fresh cold water was $2, I would spend the $2 just to get the fresh cold water. It sounds so much better when really both glasses of water are identical. So I always take that principle and use that with the naming of places or naming of courses or naming of benefits. And so with the Grand Canyon webinar, it was, what about it's a live webinar from the edge of the Grand Canyon? And then not only a live webinar, I did a whole bunch of Google searches and I'm pretty satisfied that we're the world's first. So I said, it's the world's first live webinar from the edge of the Grand Canyon. So I'm building up that sense of dramatic demonstration to make the community and the customers curious that they'll want to see what is going to happen here. So
I love that.
We drove down and we were building a masterclass along the way. We didn't have a masterclass to sell. I wanted it to be a brand new masterclass. So we came up with this concept of the Epic 8. And so what if we chose the 8 most epic locations that are kind of on the western side of the USA? And so we started to build this masterclass. We started in Seattle, and the first stop was Seattle, and we shot masterclass content at the skyline of Seattle. And then we went down to a place called Mono Lake, California. We got the Hollywood sign. We did the Manhattan Beach Pier in LA. So we got all these places to create and build the Epic 8 landscape photography masterclass. And by the time we got down to the Grand Canyon, we had kind of built about half the masterclass. I wasn't even done yet. The team is still back home. And it was one of those things like we're flying the airplane while we build it. And we had a whole bunch of bonuses as well that I needed to create. It was a stressful time. There's no question about it. It was so much work to build a masterclass on the road and have it ready in time for a live webinar. And I, of course, needed to create a brand new live webinar. But then it came to game day. And so Leah and I put all the contents of the Starlink dish and this big battery that weighs like 35 pounds and a laptop computer. We're putting all this into our 2 backpacks. We had solar panels, and then we had about a 30-minute hike to truly get to the edge. And we got to the edge where there was like a 2,000, 3,000 foot drop off. And we set up about 15 feet away from the edge. And for this live webinar, I made sure that I had a co-host and that I had scripted the webinar and that the co-host had the script of everything I was going to say. In the event that I lost my satellite feed, he would be able to kind of carry the ball and keep the webinar moving.
Where was the co-host located? Because I remember that they were at home and comfortable, and you're out there, wind's blowing.
Yeah, ironically, he's in Orlando.
Oh,
so
no
he's in Orlando co-hosting, and I'm standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon.
So
and
cool.
Boy, I'll tell you, I was so nervous when we were hitting that go live button at the start of the webinar, because I was just thinking there are so many moving parts to this whole thing. There are so many things that can go wrong, and yet we pulled it off. I did drop out 3 times during the webinar for about 10 seconds or so, 15 seconds. And my co-host, Michael, he just carried that ball and ran with it because he had the script. And we got to the end of the webinar. We made the sales pitch, and I followed the perfect webinar script that's laid out in the Expert Secrets book, like to a T, because I have learned, do not think that you can outthink the perfect webinar script. It's tried and true. It's battle tested. Just go with it. So we got to the end of the webinar.
Battle tested. That's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely is. And so we got to the end of the webinar, and I hadn't checked my ClickFunnels account while we were live because I'm operating off this little laptop screen, and I'm my fingers are on a trackpad. I was standing in front of my laptop. My laptop was on a tripod at standing height, and then I had a light, and I had a mirrorless camera. Here's one other thing: is that you want to, when giving a dramatic demonstration, have the best possible video feed. And the camera on a laptop is, it doesn't look nearly as good as a true mirrorless camera. So we had a second tripod with a mirrorless camera just for the video feed. dedicated microphone, an earpiece. Anyway, I digress. I got to the end of the webinar, and then we had a Skype call between me and Michael, my co-host, and the guys on the team who are back in Vancouver. And I was just waiting for the number. And like, come on, guys, tell me, like, how much is the number? And then they told me, and I get so emotional.
Tim, what's the number?
We had on that one 2,700 people who joined us live, and that's compared to a normal stay-at-home webinar for us of around 900 people. So like we 3x'd our normal live show-ups for the webinar. We were selling a $297 bundle. And on that one, I think just during the live, we did about $65,000 during the live. But then with the replay over the next 4 days, we cracked the six figures on the webinar. And of course, what's so awesome about
congratulations. That's so cool.
Thank you.
So much hard work.
Yeah, oh my goodness, was that a lot of hard work. But what's so awesome about it is that was now a year and a bit ago. And every 8 weeks, I will advertise that webinar to my email list. And it is just the gift that keeps on giving because we've evergreened the webinar and we have a really awesome lead magnet. This is another thing with dramatic demonstrations, is that we make sure that everyone is going to get something awesome as a lead magnet when they watch and stay to the end of the webinar. We make sure to say very clearly, you're going to get a download link at the end of this presentation. So make sure you stay to the end so you can get your free book. And because we have a really great lead magnet, it still continues to sell to this day. So that's what I love about building a well put together live webinar, is that it's kind of like it's this black box. And that if you just pour people into the open top of the black box, money is going to come out the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And so
it's a money printing machine.
Going.
I love
I feel like I have so many questions about that. So you talked about your original demonstration, your perfect webinar on the edge of the Grand Canyon. You're operating from a small monitor and you're going live, and all of this feels brand new to you. Do you have any idea what is happening behind the scenes of the engagement, or are you just, is everything feeling like it's on a whim and you have no expectation? Like how did that feel?
Oh, I was really nervous about it because we had put some pretty significant advertising dollars behind it. And one thing I don't like is doing a live webinar with a really tiny laptop screen. I love having the full power at home where I've got dual monitors, or they're really big. I can have lots of windows open and I can kind of see that dashboard of how many people are there and what's going on. And with that tiny monitor, I needed to have my script in an open window, and then the webinar program in an open window. And it was just taking up all the real estate on the monitor. So I was blind. I didn't know how many people we had or anything. And that's why at the end of it, when we had our Skype call, the video call, and then the guys on my team said, okay, here's how much money we just made on it. Like I practically burst into tears and fell over and started laughing all at the same time because there were just so much emotion that came into play. It was just like, I felt like it was a miracle the whole thing worked, because it was kind of held together with duct tape and Band-Aids and twist ties, but yet it worked. And we got to the end of this, and the whole drive home with Leah, you have a lot of time when you're driving home from the Grand Canyon. And it was this realization like, holy cow, this really worked. We're onto something here. We have got to do this again from another place and just rebuild the whole thing and create another super dramatic demonstration. Yeah. And of course, it can't be from the same place. Where else can we do this from?
Yeah. And you already kind of answered my next question, which was about traffic and how you went about promoting this. So once you realize you created something that you're like, this perfect webinar, this works. How do we keep doing it? What did you do for traffic? How did you promote it?
So I promoted it to my email list, and then obviously on the free social media feeds that I have. And then also we created ads. We had Facebook and Instagram for the ads. And what we went really hard with on the ads was that we were giving away some pretty awesome prizes. And one thing that we've found it's to have, when you're thinking about prizes or a lead magnet, what we found is that you need to choose a prize or lead magnet that in one word, your perfect customer instantly knows what it is, right? So like the word book, everyone knows what a book is. And so we thought about that whole idea. What can we give away as a prize? We'll randomly, we'll have a free giveaway. Well, what about camera? Like everyone knows exactly what a camera is. What about tripod? What about backpack? And in our most recent one, we even gave away a drone, just because in one word, everyone knows exactly what that is. And you really have to sift through the options available for things that you're going to give away. And I found the key is that one word descriptor where everyone knows exactly what it is. So we had the free giveaway where we gave away about only like $1,200 worth of stuff, like a cheap camera, a good but inexpensive tripod, a photo backpack, and then made sure that everyone was going to get a book that they hadn't seen before with a really awesome cover on it. And we make sure that for our free books that we use as lead magnets, that we spend a lot of time. Like sometimes we can spend an entire day just working on the cover of the lead magnet, because that is what the ad is going to be on Facebook.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting about this, Tim, is when you're using this one word descriptors, I haven't thought about this too much, but I'd like to dive into it a little bit. Instead of saying, hey, you get a free download to the top 8 resources that will help you do X, Y, and Z, all of a sudden now you've lost them. Right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
White papers and downloads are great, but you got to make this simple.
Exactly. And what we know with our audience, when you say the word book, you know, I think of our perfect customer who is like a baby boomer, and you say book, like baby boomers know books. You know, they can in their mind's eye, they can feel it. They can even smell it. You know, they can smell the paper. They know what that is instantly.
Ask Russell about smelling books. He's got a problem. He'd admit it. It's awesome.
Every time I open up an old book, like you just have to smell the paper.
You know, Russell does that. He's been collecting all these old books, and we'll go in there and he'd be like, oh, you got to smell it. So
yeah,
if you ever make it to Boise, we can smell some books.
Yeah. And so that's the thing with book. And then we've even found that it's better to be using things that have that one word descriptor, even better than gift cards. Like, okay, we're going to give away a $200 gift card. It's kind of like, what would you rather have? A gift card or a camera? Like, I would rather have a camera, because there's just that I can touch that and feel that and smell that in my mind's eye as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that idea. So you actually found a lot more engagement in your promotion by offering contests and giveaways on the front end, got the engagement, received the conversions that you were probably wildly successful in, unexpected for you that first time. But by offering that and letting people know on the front end, like, we're going to do some giveaways, like people are there, they're engaged. And then probably by the end of it, they forget about the giveaway even being a thing. And a whole new surprise for them.
Yeah, Laura, you are so right. I had so many messages after the purchases where people wrote, I only came to try and win the free camera, but the presentation was so awesome and the masterclass looked so good that I just had to buy it.
They're probably willingly investing in a camera at that point.
Yeah,
that's right. This is hook story offer, right? People come for that prize, they stay for the story, and then they want the offer.
Yes.
I mean, that's masterful.
And there's another principle too. What we found on the opt-in page in order to try and boost the opt-in rate from cold traffic from the ads. So the original opt-in page was like, hey, come to this world's first live webinar from the edge of the Grand Canyon. So that's like thing number 1, it's this world's first. And then thing number 2, everyone's going to get a free book. Thing number 3, and you might win the camera, the tripod, the backpack. What we found for cold traffic was that our opt-in rate was not so good when we're trying to show everyone all the stuff that they might get. But when we honed it down to one thing, like we had an ad for just, hey, free book, and you're going to get the book when you watch this free live workshop. Then you get to the opt-in page, and we had one opt-in page that was just book, get the book, opt in. And without going so heavy on all the other stuff, that's what worked the best. And then another ad, free camera giveaway. That was the opt-in page instead of everything altogether.
Simple split test. The people who like books are going to opt in. Now the people who like cameras are going to opt in.
Exactly. And what I call it is the one thing. And, did you ever see the movie The Hunt for Red October?
Long time ago. Yeah.
Long time ago. Well, there's this one scene where Sean Connery is in his Russian submarine and he's looking through the periscope, and he tells his second in command to push the button, the ping button. Okay. There's this classic line. He says, one ping only. So he's telling his second in command to just hit the ping button one time because he's sending a secret message to the Americans in another sub nearby. And I think of that all the time, and that's what works for webinars. It works for advertising, that you go with one thing only. So when I'm advertising for the free book, then make sure that it lands with an opt-in page where it's the book, and not try ultimately confuse people with so much stuff going on the opt-in page. Keep it to one thing only. And that's the same thing with an origin story. When you lead to that one thing that changed your life, that one thing that if your customers start to do this one thing, that's what's going to change their life too. One thing only. It works.
That's awesome. And this now turned into not just one dramatic demonstration, but how many other places have you done, and where are some of those places that you've done these live webinars?
So after the Grand Canyon, it was like, we have to do this again. So it was like 2.5 months later, we did it from the Canadian Rocky Mountains. We went live from the Rockies and then created a brand new Epic 8 masterclass from the Rockies. And that was another really successful one. And then I was realizing, hey, we have tickets to Funnel Hacking Live in September 2022 in Orlando, Florida. We're going to be on the East Coast. Let's do another one on the East Coast. So we created another Epic 8 masterclass going down the East Coast from Maine to Florida. And then we kind of leapfrogged on the panache of the words New York City. Like, Jimmy Kimmel live from New York. And
Tim Shields, the photography guy, live from New York.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And really, in the end, what was live from New York? I wanted to go live from Central Park, but I was too afraid of people coming up and interrupting me during the live webinar. So we rented a hotel room that had a window that just looked out to the New York skyline, and it had fast internet. I made sure of that. And so I was able to say in advance, like, I'm going to be hosting a live photography webinar live from New York. And it worked. We had a ton of people for that one, and a brand new masterclass that was connected to the East Coast, and it worked really well. So that brings us now to April 2023. And that's when we kind of realized, okay, we need to do another one. And for this one, we went to Death Valley National Park in California, which is a really beautiful desert style national park. And again, I'm looking for those descriptive words. So we held the world's first live webinar from the sand dunes of Death Valley. That's great. On this one, we really broke our previous records. We had 3,800 people join us live.
Tim, that's a big number for a webinar. To get people live, 3,800 people is huge.
Yeah, and considering that our average one at home is 900 people.
So making it dramatic, making it interesting makes all the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and really pumping up that sense of curiosity that we're doing this in a place, there's no cell phone data, there's no internet, there's no electricity. How are we doing this? Well, you have to watch the world's first live webinar live from the sand dunes of Death Valley to find out. And when you do join, you're going to get this free set of cheat cards, and you're going to have a chance to win this camera and all the stuff that we are giving away. So on that one, on the actual live webinar for the very first time in our company's history, we cracked 6 figures during the live webinar.
So and then, cool.
Yeah, on a $297 offer. And yeah, I was just so grateful and thankful that we were able to do that. It worked. And this time we didn't have any video dropouts and no satellite dropouts at all. And it just made me realize that for other people who are in other niches outside of my niche, there's an opportunity there. Because when I start to think about, like, let's just say you're in the finance space. Well, are there certain places you could go to where the location is tied to finance? And I think, well, what about Wall Street? And then you might be thinking, oh, well, how we can't get permission to go inside like the stock market building. No, you don't have to, but you could rent an Airbnb or a hotel room on Wall Street and then say you're going live from Wall Street to build that sense of curiosity and to build the dramatic presentation. If you were in, I don't know, some kind of e-commerce, or you're able to go live from the factory floor, or if you're in fitness, like imagine if you're teaching some kind of a workout program, it's going to be live from Gold's Gym. There are so many opportunities where you could take this to create an extra sense of drama with your presentation.
Yeah. I love that you're kind of like the embodiment of the dramatic demonstration. You're talking about all of these exciting places and how you can make it engaging because you are in the place that people will find thrilling, while also realizing that like you probably did these things because it's fun, right? It's adventurous. Like what you do is a fun, adventurous thing. So did you ever imagine, like, did younger Tim ever imagine that you would have a business doing these things that are fun?
Okay, well, now I'm going to be vulnerable with you. When I was in grade 8, starting the first year of high school, they had this thing. It's called the AV Club. And my older sister, I told her, oh, I can't wait to start high school. I'm going to join the AV Club. It looks so cool. And she said, Tim, don't you dare join the AV Club. Your social life will be destroyed for the rest of your life. And I remember saying, I really don't care. Mm-hmm. They do cool stuff there. They have these film projectors. And so I joined the AV Club, and, it's just that interest in a little bit of tech and in photography that stayed with me for my life in previous careers. And now here I am, sort of bringing that passion that I had as a kid and being able to make money with it. And it's amazing how when you look back in your life, you see this whole series of dots, and the dots are all connected when you look backwards. It's like, God can sometimes direct the paths of your feet and you don't know it. You think you're out somewhere out in left field and that you're on the detour, but really you are on the path and it's going to connect with something awesome. You just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward and not giving up. Things are going to work out as long as you put in the work and keep innovating.
I love that hindsight. And for all of those people who are nerds, marketing nerds, whatever, there's a lot of rich nerds out there. Yeah. So if you're nerdy, it's okay. There's people out there that you connect with. And the path, I love what you said too. Sometimes you don't know where this path goes, but keep moving forward, keep trying.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that really comes to mind here. When I started my online business, I was not an authority in anything. I was certainly not an authority in landscape photography. I had no following. I had no nothing. And I've thought back, how do you build your authority when you're nothing? Now, I'm a keen follower of history and World War II history. There's this German guy, and he was in the war. His name was Erwin Rommel. He was a German general. And by the time he died before the end of the war, he was considered like the ultimate World War II hero by the German people. But yet, here's the kicker. He was in charge of this big campaign over in Africa, and the Allies really kicked the butts of the Germans. And he had to get evacuated before he was taken a prisoner by the Americans and the British. So I was asking myself, how is it that this general can be considered a war hero by his nation, yet he was a total failure in war? So I actually just took a deep dive into it and I figured it out. So it's all about being seen as the guy at the place with the stuff doing the thing. Here's where I'm going with this. They had these things called newsreels back during the war. And the photographers would go with their film cameras and they would go to Africa and they would film this general And he would be seen with his cap and his goggles on his cap, and he'd be looking at a map and pointing and telling people where to go and what to do. And it was like newsreel after newsreel of this guy in the desert doing the thing. And this was shown, these newsreels were shown in front of movies, at the start of movies for all the German people. And when they saw this guy over and over again at the place with the stuff doing the thing, it built his panache in their minds and built his authority, and he became a hero in their eyes, even though he lost the battle. So from that, I developed this little principle where if you want to boost your authority, you need to be seen as the guy or the gal at the place with the stuff doing the thing. And you need to show that over and over again. So whatever your niche is, it doesn't matter. You just got to be the guy or the gal at the place with the stuff doing the thing over and over, and you will be seen as an authority in your niche.
That's really powerful. And and we talked about this a little bit too, and it gets me excited because a lot of people are doing those things in very specific industries. And we talked about how there's 3 main industries, but I always like to talk to people like you because you turned something that you love and that you're passionate about in your own art into your business. So I would love to talk a little bit more about that. Like, what has that journey been like for you? And what would you say to other people who maybe they feel like, they're not an entrepreneur, they don't have a business idea, but they definitely have like hobbies that they love?
Yeah, you're asking such a great question, Laura, and it's the word hobby. Now, we know that all of the training and the current belief is that there are just 3 markets and that you have your best bet at creating a business if you are connected with health, wealth, or relationships. But I believe there's actually a 4th market. I call it hobby. You could call it passion. And so let's say that someone wants to learn how to play the guitar. They don't want to become a star. They don't want to make money with it. They just want to be able to strum the guitar in their living room. Well, that's a hobby. Or if you wanted to learn how to watercolor paint, you want to paint flowers in your backyard, that's a hobby. And in my business, it's also a hobby. I teach people how to take awesome landscape photos, but I don't teach how to make money with it. So it's just a hobby. The key thing that I found as to being really the secret of my success, it's creating a framework. So if you were to think about what steps would you give someone if you were to teach them how to do your thing, the one thing that you're good at doing, that can become your framework. But of course, you need to have your own personalized name on it. Like your name is Laura. So you want the Laura ABC system. It's your proprietary way that is new, that they haven't seen before. And the reason why they haven't been successful in the past is because they haven't tried the Laura ABC system yet. And if they do try it, it's going to change their life. So framework is the key to being able to teach others what you know and to actually get paid for it.
And you make it seem so approachable too. And I hope that that's a key takeaway of this is if there is something that you love, it doesn't have to be about teaching people to make money or market or be an expert or coach others. It can simply be teaching what you love to other hobbyists.
Yes. Absolutely. And making sure that you're really dialed into what some of the hot button emotional points would be that your perfect customer would be looking for. That with me, I'm not telling people, hey, wouldn't you like to make money with the pictures that you're taking? With me, it's more like, hey, wouldn't you love to be able to take stunning landscape photos so that when your friends and family come over and they look at those big prints of yours on the wall, they're going to look at you and say, wow, did you really take that photo? That's so beautiful. And they can feel that feeling that they would want to have when someone says that. And that's what I'm trying to tie into, that if you use my framework, your photos are going to look so beautiful. That's the response that you're going to get from your friends and family.
Little keys that you found through that. It's like, hey, if somebody's buying a drill, they don't want the drill, they want the hole, right? And you nailed that. Do people want to take these pictures? Yes, they do, because there's a sense of pride. But ultimately, they want people to recognize that they're very good at something too. It's really cool. I love that you dialed in on that too, and just understanding people's why and what their real motivation is.
Yeah, Russell talks about this so much. And one of the things that was in expert secrets that resonated with me, and I think about it so often, is the word status. Like, why do we buy stuff?
Amen.
Ultimately, it's to increase our status. And even if that means we want to have our pictures looking better so that when we post them on Instagram, we're going to get more likes. Why do we want more likes? It boosts our status. And everything comes down to our status, really. We're pretty predictable as human beings.
Isn't that funny? Well, I think you've cracked the code on a lot of this stuff. As we kind of wrap this up, I kind of want to tease here a little bit. This is not the last that you're going to see of Tim. That's all I'm going to say, but this is going to be really, really fun. If you don't have your tickets yet for Funnel Hacking Live as well, I think maybe you should get some tickets to Funnel Hacking Live. And remember, Tim Shields is the guy at the crazy edge of the Grand Canyon. That's the place, right? He's with the stuff, with the tripods, the laptop, everything else. And he is doing the thing, the webinar, taking pictures. And I'll tell you, it's really been fun for me to sit in the bleachers, working with Russell. And this is my favorite part of this, and I know it's Laura's as well, is seeing, and you're one of these unique examples for me to see from start to like growth, which is just so much fun to see. And just that conversation, of like, man, look at where Tim is now. And I'm so excited to be, up there when you're getting a 2 Club X here at Funnel Hacking Live. So we appreciate you. And if people want to know more about you, where is the best place for them to follow you or find you? You got a URL that we can put in the description where they go.
Yeah, they can go to photographyacademy.com, and my Instagram is @TimsPhotos.
Awesome. Anything else, Laura, as we wrap up?
No, Tim, I'm so grateful. Your story, your background, everything that you've shared with us is so inspirational. And again, I mentioned how approachable it is to somebody who may not even feel like they're an entrepreneur, but has something that they love and that they could turn into a business, to not need even necessarily to teach somebody marketable skills, but just to do something that they love. Like that is why we're all here at the end of the day, to make an impact and to do what we love and to share that with others. And you are the epitome of that. And I really appreciate you sharing that today.
Thank you. I want to say one last thing about Funnel Hacking Live. That really the key to being successful as an entrepreneur, it's not how smart you are. It's not intelligence. It's not what your background is. It's really your level of motivation and whether or not you're going to stick with it. And I cannot say enough good things about Funnel Hacking Live. This year will be my 4th year in a row that my wife and I have gone to Funnel Hacking Live. And this time we're actually bringing our adult kids and the members of our team to Funnel Hacking Live. You need to be connected with other entrepreneurs, and you need to see what is possible, because it will build your belief that you can do it too. Remember the 4-minute mile with Roger Bannister, that everyone thought it was impossible until he did it. And once he did it, then suddenly all these other runners were able to do it because they saw it was possible. When you go to Funnel Hacking Live, you're going to see what is possible. It's going to motivate you and inspire you. And that's all you need, is motivation and inspiration and hard work so that you can be successful as an entrepreneur.
I love it. Well, go to funnelhackinglive.com if you haven't got your tickets. Tim, Laura, thanks so much. And we'll talk to all of you soon.
Thanks, guys. See you at Funnel Hacking Live.
Thanks for having me.